everybody, and welcome back to Repeater. My name is Pat.
And I am Evan.
And I'd like to welcome you to part 2 of host episodes.
Yes.
Thanks for being here, Evan.
It's great to be here.
How does it feel to be our very special guest?
It feels wonderful.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
Truly what I've always desired, to be the center of attention on a show that I already host.
Well, it's only taken you 2 years? How long have we been doing this?
Yeah, 2 years.
Cool.
Something like that.
It's a nice slow burn.
Yeah, right.
Really tricked him.
But no, very happy to be here.
Cool.
Indeed. Second of our back-to-back host episodes.
Yeah, no, it's been fun so far. Let's see if we can keep the momentum going.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you
Maybe
too.
people don't realize, but this is the first episode of this podcast that you're hearing where Pat and I don't live together.
Yeah, it's...
Well, this is the second episode if you just listened to the previous one.
Sure.
But this is the first couple of episodes.
But as of us recording...
We're recording these back to back.
It's been 1 week since I saw
you looked at me.
Yeah. No, exactly
no,
a week.
I saw you a week ago.
In Los Angeles.
But we had to go all the way to LA to see each other.
I mean, listen, sometimes you got to go through great lengths to
yes,
keep friends.
But no, luckily we do live in the same neighborhood.
That's true.
And still get to see each other.
What were you doing in LA?
I was out there doing a show at the UCB with my buddy Ari Miller. We were doing a sketch show called King Prawn Holdings, a conglomerate in crisis. And it was very fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How was it doing a show out at UCB West?
It was cool. We were at UCB has 2 spaces in LA.
Mm-hmm.
We were at UCB Sunset, and it was cool. It was a nice kind of mid-sized theater. Super nice space. Very unlike almost every space I've played in New York in all the years I've been here. Just like, yeah, you know, LA, more spread out. They got more room. And the facility is much newer than a lot of the theaters here, obviously. So it was really cool. We were paired with another great show. We were paired with a Bachelor musical that had like 20 people in it. So it was excitement, you know, like a good energy in the room by the time we got out there.
That's awesome.
And also got to just spend a week hanging out with good friends from all walks of life out there, and one of my uncles as well. So it was a good
Very
week.
cool.
Yeah.
Any standouts other than the show?
Got to go see a Dodgers game.
Awesome.
And they won, but it took 12 innings, so we were there into extra innings. But it was gorgeous. We had great seats, beautiful ballpark. Really enjoyed it, and played some basketball with my buddy Kevin, who I have not seen in a long time.
Nice.
I will say though, I should also mention that before I played basketball with Kevin, I met his son, who is new to the world. Meeting Kevin's son was more of a highlight than playing basketball with Kevin.
Did you like dunk on Kevin?
No, but I cannot wait until his son can dunk on him. That'll be the coolest day ever, is when Kevin gets dunked on by his son.
Yeah.
I hope it's sooner rather than later. Like, I hope his son's like a 12-year-old who can dunk.
That'd be I mean, cool. I'm sure he's on that trajectory.
I think so.
Yeah.
Got a ball in his hands, you know, 3 months old.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
I mean, that's how that works.
Yeah.
Just practice.
That's all it takes.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. It was good to see you.
Yes.
But now we're back in New York, and I'm curious what you've been listening to recently.
So one thing I've been listening to a lot in the last week or so is this song by this duo, I think, band duo, who cares, called the Cactus Blossoms. And these guys are a kind of a throwback country act, similar to like almost like the Everly Brothers or something. And the first song on, I think, what was their last album is called Stoplight Kisses. And it's like this very kind of, it's very kind of bright little country song about leaning over for a kiss when you're at a stoplight. So it's very sweet.
That's adorable.
Yeah. And the whole album is really great. I like them quite a bit. They're right up my alley. My buddy Louie recommended them to me when I was at my 10-year college reunion a couple weeks ago. Whoa. So it was a good pickup from an old music bud. Nice. Who we were kind of just batting back and forth recommendations for a while. So yeah, that was great.
That's like the best way to do that.
Mm-hmm. A good way to catch up too. It's like, what have you been listening to? It's like, well, actually I'm kind of on this kick right now. Or like a couple years ago, haven't seen you in a while. I was into this.
This is build a real good playlist off of that.
Pretty much, yeah. What about you?
So I've been listening to the new Courtney Barnett, Tell Me How You Really Feel. It's a lot of fun. Saw her play with Kurt Vile. We went a while ago, and that was great. She's an incredible player, and I really like the controlled chaos of the way she plays. Anyway, it's a really good album, and there's a song on it called Nameless Faceless, and I think it's a great song. It's a lot of fun, and it's pretty clear about the message that it's trying to send, and I think that it's very important that these things are being talked about, especially in an artist who's doing as well as Courtney is. And there's definitely like a moment in the song of just understanding what my experience is walking around and how I don't have the experience of other people. Just the lyric, here it is. It's I want to walk through the park in the dark. Men are scared that women will laugh at them. I want to walk through the park in the dark. Women are scared that men will kill them. Yeah. And, I think it's easy to feel like, well, yeah, I mean, people are scared of other people. But it's nice to hear that in such like a clear way, because I'm sure I've been scared in a park, but it's not a frequent thing. Yeah. And to have an artist that has a platform like this to have these songs that are able to send these messages out, I think is very important, and it's great.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's a powerful line, and it does immediately give you that perspective of like, yes, right. We have the privilege of walking through the world, generally not fearing for our lives, and women often walk through the world generally fearing for their lives. Yeah. And that is something that, obviously we have to be more tuned into in our day-to-day lives, because that is the type of thing, man, where like you see somebody cross the street from you and you're like, oh, that's weird. And you realize like, well, fuck, man, most of the world has been like trained to avoid us because we might kill them.
Yeah. And, something that I hope happens for people is that maybe it opens some eyes. Yeah. Just to think like, right, this is a different perspective of somebody that lives a life that I have no experience in. Yeah. And it's good to have art that does that.
Yeah. And Courtney is so crazy adept at putting that song, like the lyrics in that song, that line and many others, into this tune that is like so catchy, so upbeat and fun. Sure. That it's like, how can you not want to sing along and like legitimately learn all the words to it, Yeah. And that's going to make it sink in. I mean, she's incredible in that way.
Yeah, and that's the controlled chaos that I really enjoy, because you can have these songs that are just they're just a little more simple and just light, and they're good, just kind of folky indie rock songs. But then there's another song on there that is just like this massive rocker that's just gonna punch you in the face, called I'm Not Your Mother, I'm Not Your Bitch. Yeah. And great song. Also does not mince words. And I love that. Yeah. No. But anyway, I'll stop talking about that because I want to know what song you brought today.
Aha. I would like to talk about Somewhere Over the Rainbow by a.k.a. I will not be able to say his name. Israel I don't have it in front of me. Kamakawiwoʻole, something like that. A very long Hawaiian name, informally known as Is. Cool. Let's give a listen to it. So I think the beginning is my favorite part of the song, because everyone knows this song, like the song in general, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But I feel like this part is like his stamp on it, kind of. Yeah. And you get this voice out of this guy that's just awesome.
It pairs well with the ukulele.
Yeah. So most of us know the song.
Yeah.
That's just a little taste of the beginning of it.
That is a cool way to start that song.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a little bit of a vocal flourish up front. So here's where, this is the part of the show where I guess correctly
Cool.
why you picked this song. I happen to know you come from a musical family. You have a lot of instruments in the house. And I feel like your parents probably had a recording of this, maybe on a compilation, or maybe they had heard this song and went out and bought this album. But I feel like maybe this was an album that went on like a Sunday afternoon, like yard work had been done, and let's just like chill with the family and like maybe pull out a ukulele and like try to learn it. Maybe that's too specific, but to me, my guess is that this was kind of like a family affair with this song, and you have some connection to your younger years.
Yeah. I would say that you are vaguely very correct. But specifically, I have an even more connected memory to this song involving my family. So you are absolutely correct in the sense that this album that this was on, and maybe one or two other albums were in my house growing up, and they probably would be put on something like a Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, or maybe if we were like up at the lake in Vermont or something like that. But they were specifically my mom's albums, because my mom grew up in part of her life in Hawaii. And so I think that, her family lived in Northern California for like most of her early childhood, and then relocated to Hawaii at a certain point and then moved back to Northern California. So it's like most of my association with my mom's family is Northern California, but there was this weird period of time, years before me, where that part of my family lived in Hawaii. And I think that because of that, my mom always had some Hawaiian music sitting around the house. And is kind of, at least in like the 90s, he was sort of like the national treasure of Hawaiian music. He was kind of like the big deal. So we had a few of his albums sitting around. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this version is from the album Alone in Is World, which might be a greatest hits of some kind or something like that. But also this song pops up on a couple different albums in a couple different versions. It's like famously a song where he had really, really bad sleep apnea. He was a very obese man. And so he couldn't sleep a lot. And I believe the story goes that he just like woke up in the middle of the night, called his driver, called the guy who ran the studio for him or could open the studio or whatever. And was like, I want to record a song. And he like showed up in the middle of the night and did like 6 takes of this song just with his ukulele, and then just went home. And that was it. And it's become easily his most famous song. People often know this from like movies and that kind of stuff, commercials, I'm sure, and whatnot. I think for our generation, I think the biggest movie it was used all the time throughout 50 First Dates, the Adam Sandler, Drew Barrymore movie, which is like, gives me a real hang up when I describe kind of like why this song matters to me. But so I'd always kind of liked Iz, and he'd always sort of been this family thing, and connected pretty directly to my mom because of the Hawaii thing. And so, but this song kind of like solidified its place in my heart after my mom died. So she passed when I was a freshman in college, and we were like home for a few days. There was, a lot of stuff happening, obviously, getting preparations. And I think we were borrowing a car from someone, and at some point this CD ended up in the car. I think like me, my brother, and my dad grabbed it on the way out of the house, you know, and we're just like, oh, one of mom's CDs, let's like put it on in the car. And what I remember distinctly is it was on as the three of us were driving to her funeral. And we pulled up in front of the church, I think as the song started playing. And you can just kind of like imagine like what we just listened to of just this like solo ukulele coming on. And then this guy, this huge guy singing so sweetly. And then he's singing these lyrics that are, you know, you can interpret Somewhere Over the Rainbow kind of in many different ways, but certainly there's some kind of allusion potentially that you could read into like the afterlife or like beyond the veil or something, you know, like that. And we pulled up, like I said, we pulled up to get out for that, like as that song was starting. And then we just sat there and listened to the whole song. And no one said anything. No one even was like, oh, let's wait till the song's over. It was like a non-decision that got made simultaneously by three people.
Yeah.
Of like, we're not turning this song off. And I can just remember the song ending and my brother just turning the car off, like and taking the key out, and we all just silently got out of the car. Like there's a totally unspoken of moment.
Yeah.
But where I think for a group of like three relatively quiet men sort of like spoke volumes in this, you know, 3-minute period or whatever it was. And since then, I mean, man, if you want to turn on a song that'll make me cry, it's this one. It's this one. This is like my I need a good cry on like any day of the week song. This is like the song I can put on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird how the universe works, I think, because that's incredibly serendipitous that happened.
Yeah.
Like, clearly you put the album on, but the timing is so interesting. And like, I can't imagine what that's like. But did it comfort you going in, or do you only really recall being in the car?
It's a good question. I do kind of only recall being in the car, but it did. I think part of like having a song, maybe even any song by or, you know, maybe anyone that my mom would have liked, just like the act of having a song kind of start as we were about to go do this thing felt in its own way. I mean, ominous, but in kind of like a good way. Sure. Comforting, like, hey, you're being taken care of. I am not, and I'm not even trying to be stubborn, but like, I'm not a religious person. It doesn't mean I don't occasionally see significance in things, you know? And that was definitely one of those things where I was like, oh, okay, maybe like stuff's connected to some degree, and maybe we're you know, as weird as it is, but it's like maybe the three of us aren't alone in this. Like maybe mom's still floating around a little bit, kind of like looking out for us, or at least like letting us know that she's cool, or like we could be all right, you know, like whatever you want to take from the moment. Honestly, probably changes on the day to day of like how I'm feeling. Yeah, but there's something there, I think, that is sort of in that world of like ethereal connection.
Yeah. And I don't want to like put too much on a moment that's not mine, but it does sound like it also helped sort of solidify like, right, it is the three of us. Because you're not alone in it. Like, you have each other, and that's great. And you have this memory you can kind of look back on, or use this as a way to look back on your memories, which is cool. That's like a very special thing to have. Yeah, especially so much of that time, like that week or whatever, was a real blur, because so my mom died in a car accident, and right afterwards, my dad and I were both in the hospital briefly. My dad for a little bit longer than I, and sort of like we're getting rides everywhere, you know, like we're being taken care of. So there was not a lot of
conscious decisions being made at that time by at least my dad and I. I think my brother probably was making a lot of decisions and having to deal with a lot of stuff. But so, yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. It's like I barely remember, you know? And there's a few moments here and there. Like I can remember like a couple moments in my house, maybe between services or maybe before services started. I can remember a couple moments at the wake, a couple moments, 1 or 2 moments like in the funeral. But in general, this is like the most crystal clear thing.
Yeah.
I think because it's tied to a song, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. That's special. But I met you years after this. I unfortunately didn't have a chance to meet your mother.
Yeah.
What was she like?
It was funny. Just before we started recording today, my boss, a meeting ended, and he looked down at his phone and he said, "Oh, it looks like there was a big brawl between parents at a youth soccer game. I gotta watch this." And I was just like, I was getting up to leave the room, and I said like, "Oh, that was my mom." Like, my mom got kicked out. She got kicked out of a youth basketball game once for yelling at the refs. She used to give umpires such a hard time at baseball games. But she was otherwise a pretty like calm person. But I think it's indicative of she liked sports, but she also liked my brother and I. And my brother and I played sports growing up.
Yeah.
And she was not a casual fan. She knew the games super well. She knew all the rules. She would, if it was baseball, she would basically always be keeping score, like herself on the sidelines, and know what was what. And so she was intense about it sometimes, you know, like she wanted us to do well. It wasn't even just like she didn't just defend us. It was the team, you know, and if we sucked, we sucked. Didn't mean she was going to defend us. Or if we were wrong, she'd tell us to shut up probably. You know what I mean? Like, she was pretty fair in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was like a lot of the good stuff. My mom, she liked to, I think there was always a slice of that Hawaii life that never left her. Of she hated winter. She lived outside of Boston for the majority of her adult life. She hated winter. She loved the sun and just being out in it and kind of like having a chance to relax. That's a lot of the good stuff I remember from my mom. She dug music. She liked, she definitely supported my brother and I in all of pursuits artistically and stuff like that. 'Cause I think she had sung and maybe played a little piano when she was younger, and she did like school plays and stuff, musicals. But you know, that was all a little before my time.
Yeah. Well, it's cool that she was supportive across everything, it sounds like. And
she was good. She didn't support me having a girlfriend before I was like 17. I remember I had like a couple girlfriends in middle school, and one of them, I think this was 6th grade, so pretty early, but one of them like sent a Christmas card to my house, and maybe I opened it in front of them, like my parents, because I didn't know any better. I just got a Christmas card. And I my mom's like, "Oh, who's that from?" I said, "Oh, this is from Sam." And I think she said, "Who is Sam?" And I was like, "Oh, my girlfriend." And she was like, "Mm-hmm." And she was nice about it and like supportive of that relationship. And the minute it ended, I remember her saying something like, she asked me about some other girl that I was friends with. And I was like, "Oh no, we're not dating." She was like, "Good. I think you're too young to date." And that stuck in my head for so long that she didn't know about like anyone I even like kind of dated the rest of middle school and high school until I had been not dating. I'd been really, really good friends with this one woman from my high school. We were super close and we would see each other all the time, that my mom eventually just assumed that we were dating. And she invited her to my mom invited her to like her own birthday dinner, like me, my dad, my mom, and her, this non-girlfriend at the time. And I remember being like so frustrated and embarrassed with my mom. Like, Mom, we're not dating. Like, how can you? And of course, like within 3 months, that was my girlfriend of 5 years. So whether my mom was, yes, maybe she was just going to bat for my friend, my not quite girlfriend. So she maybe she helped make that happen. By that time, I must have been 16 or 17. I think my mom was very okay with it.
Yeah.
But I remember otherwise hiding any attractions I had for a long time.
Yeah. She sounds wonderful. Like, I like the idea of like Hawaii chill, but like has the convictions to the point that I will get thrown out of this basketball game.
Yeah, I don't know. She used to be able to turn on a dime, and I really, I don't think I knew, because I didn't really know her as an adult. It's hard to like try to figure out where that came from, because my perspective was probably just so different. I mean, she would also like, I mean, man, if you were a neighborhood kid being a huge pain in the ass, like cutting through our yard or playing like too much roller hockey out in front of our house, I mean, you did not want to cross my mom. She was like a huge pain in the ass to deal with. And so I think at that time in my life, I was like, if she was like yelling at the other kids in the neighborhood, I was just embarrassed, you know?
Yeah.
And I didn't really know why she was doing that. Like, oh, come on, Mom. Like, they're just because I'm not out there, like, doesn't mean they're up to no good or anything like that. I'm sometimes out there. Like, that's also my group of like neighborhood friends. So there was that aspect of it I never quite understood. I think she was often stressed out, which is probably why she liked relaxing so much, but also why she kind of had like a bit of an edge to her.
Sure.
Is I think she just generally lived a pretty stressed out life and sort of like worried about a lot of stuff all the time. So there you go. That makes sense. I think she's stressed out. She loves to relax, and she also gets fired up pretty easily.
Well, especially like if you have Hawaii in your past and you need to deal with a Boston winter. Like, I imagine there's a lot of not fun with digging out cars and stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of like, why the hell did I move out here type of thing, which is interesting. But yeah. She's also on our last episode we talked about the Beach Boys, and she's definitely the reason I knew the Beach Boys growing up.
Yeah.
I don't think you could escape being like a teenager in California and Hawaii in the 60s and not be very into the Beach Boys.
I think it was legally required.
Yeah.
Would she show you music, like walk you through the story of it, or just kind of put it on?
She more put it on and probably deferred a lot to me and my brother and my dad. Like whatever we wanted to listen to, as long as it wasn't annoying, she was probably cool with. And my dad listened to a lot of music, although at that point, kind of like in our childhood, that was a lot of just straight up country music from the time, from the 90s. And so, yeah, I don't know. She never really put stuff on in a way of trying to show us anything or like dictate anything, I don't think. But she kind of had her music, and often her CDs would sort of be in like their own little section away from like my dad's huge CD collection. So sometimes actually her CDs were easier to pick through because they were always kind of just like there and out, whereas my dad's were more like in a drawer that I like was packed with stuff, and I'd have to like pick through them. So yeah, it's interesting. I actually talked not that long ago on the show about this Bette Midler album that I had listened to that was just like the most insane collection of genres I've ever heard. And it was an old CD my mom had. That I like, that's one I don't think I ever really listened to, because at whatever age I came across it, I was like, oh, I don't listen to Bette Midler. Bette Midler's lame as hell.
Yeah.
And my mom probably would put it on occasionally. I just didn't really like it. Right. But now as an adult, I can listen to that, and it's not like that album's not going to find its way into my rotation really, but I'd certainly get why she liked it, you know, like, and I get what's cool about mid 90s Bette Midler.
Sure.
Like, the stuff makes a lot more sense to me now, as an adult. But yeah, she just kind of, she gave us music by osmosis, I would say.
Yeah. Cause
also her record collection, that's where like the Beach Boys were. And she definitely liked pop music a lot more than my dad. So And at my youngest ages, pop was like a huge part of what I like. Michael Jackson was the king, and I loved him so much.
Yeah.
And I think the Michael Jackson stuff we had was predominantly my mom's.
Yeah, and like finding music through osmosis like that is a great way, especially as a kid, because like you don't really have access to anything else. Or at least when we were kids, like it was CDs. That's it. Or cassette tapes.
Yeah. I also think, like in retrospect, I probably wouldn't have thought of this at the time, but you kind of want, as an adult now operating in the world, it's like you kind of want to be able to be aware of how you're putting music into people's lives and that there are different ways to do it, because my dad was definitely a, like, you should listen to this type of dad. And even more so of like, oh, that shit you listen to is garbage. This is real music. Whereas I think my mom, like, quietly didn't like a lot of the stuff that I wanted to listen to as a teenager, and quietly still put on her music. You know what I mean? And both approaches get me to listen to stuff. But you have to kind of know who you're talking to, and you have to pick your spots. Because there was also certainly a period where I think I was listening to like some whatever punk music, probably pop punk, and my dad trying to convince me that part of the music that I listened to owed its roots to like the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
And he was not wrong. But at the time, I remember like vehemently arguing with him that I was like, Dad, I get what you're saying, but I don't listen to the Beatles. I listen to this band, and this band listened to this band. And they're like, yeah, you can go back far enough, but it's a stupid argument kind of thing. And I think it made me not want to listen to the Beatles for several years. You know, it really like delayed me getting into the Beatles, was my dad insisting this thing and kind of like pushing it on me in a way that I was just too stubborn at the time to really give a shit about.
Yeah.
Whereas, man, by contrast, it took zero effort for me to listen to Hawaiian music. Like I was like totally into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think my mom like ever once told me I should listen to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think having two people in your life, one that's like, you should listen to this because this is the real stuff, and the more passive, it's just on. The third factor there being the teenager that's trying to be too cool.
Right.
Is an interesting part of that mix.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you gotta, I mean, it's one of those things where like it all works out in adulthood because you back up and you're able to like listen.
Yeah.
But at the time, yeah, one of those approaches works a little better than the other.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember as like a kid, maybe third or fourth grade, the math on this timing might be very off, but Mariah Carey was performing, and this was like, it was a while ago, so she was like just doing sort of the virtuoso singing, and just having my mom sort of like casually explain like the different octaves she could sing through, and like that was never music that was on in the house. I never really had access to it, but it was such a specific thing that it kind of set me off on this path of like, oh, that's something I'll pay attention to, because that's something that somebody that is very good at what they do.
Yeah.
And yeah, to learn sort of passively that way, or just, oh yeah, I've heard this before. It's such a cool sort of like catalog to have in the back of your head. So
I also think another thing kind of having some Hawaiian music around the house did for me, this is in conjunction, I would say, with my dad had a pretty good reggae collection as well. But between those two things, that was from like pretty young age, like what we would have called world music, you know, especially back in like 95. Everything that's not produced in North America or Britain. But I had a pretty like early introduction to a lot of that in a way that, you know, I'm no expert now, but certainly opened up my ears to really everything. And I would say from like a pretty young age, it just kind of always, I don't know, like it was a barrier that never existed for me.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think I've benefited from a lot in adulthood.
Yeah. I mean, my parents, when I was a kid would put on like the classical music station when I was going to bed. And I think that definitely sort of set me off on this path of like, not having those barriers. And then in high school, when you're trying to define who you are or whatever, then you put up these like, I can't listen to that. That's not this thing. It's this thing or whatever. But yeah, like having that sort of passive layer. Yeah. It's nice when things pop up and you can sort of look back and go, oh yeah, they definitely were influenced by the Beatles or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you listening to classical music when you're younger, it seems like no surprise that you like ambient and sort of.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely.
A lot of this other type of music now as an adult that is sort of your particular version of that thing, Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And it sounds lovely to have a house where you're sitting around just listening to Hawaiian music.
It's dope as hell.
Well, cool. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Those were wonderful stories about your mom. I wish I could have seen her yell and scream at an umpire.
Some kind of official.
Yeah, I mean, that was wonderful. So thank you.
Of course.
And where can people find you?
Oh, man, I'm on the internet at eblarden, Instagram and Twitter. That's where people should look. And I also perform regularly at the Magnet Theater, which is a little comedy theater in Chelsea, in New York City. I'm on Wednesday nights with my improv team Bodywork, and Friday nights with The Friday Night Show, a very aptly named show.
That's convenient.
Yeah. And then you and I host this podcast that comes out every week, and we have a live show once a month at QED in Astoria.
We do.
So those are all the places to find out what's going on with me.
Cool.
Mostly Twitter and Instagram. They'll give you everything you need.
That's how I track you now that we don't live together.
Yeah, you just got to look at my social, man.
Yeah, I don't call you.
Nope.
That's his last tweet. Cool. Well, again, thanks for being here. And to everybody out there, if you could rate, review, tell a friend, subscribe if you haven't already, that would be wonderful. And I don't know, maybe tweet us at Repeater Show. Tell us a song that your mom used to play in the house, or your dad, or the one CD that like you always hated, and then you listened to it recently and you're like, no, this is pretty great.
Yeah.
Please reach out.
Please do.
Yeah. And until next time.
Hit repeat.
Repeater is hosted by Evan Ford Barden and Patrick Cartelli. This episode was recorded at Magnet Training Center in New York City, where they offer classes in improv, musical improv, sketch writing, storytelling, and more. Find out more at magnettheater.com. Visit us online at repeater.show for live dates, hot music tips, and show archives. Theme music by the Sun Lions. Everything else by Love Nest Productions. Welcome to Repeater.